Hey guys, we have an interesting one today. Apparently, there is evidence that points to a new potential screen for the Nintendo Switch 2. I find this interesting because as I was doing research into deciding whether or not I wanted a Nintendo Switch 2, binge watching a bunch of YouTube videos and hearing the pros and the cons. One of the cons that I've heard a lot were about the screen and the quality of it. It was really interesting to me because it was like a minority of people who were complaining about it. And I never really seen the complaint myself, but we'll get into that later on. This is coming from Nintendo Everything. I'll link this down in the description. Nintendo Everything says evidence points to potential new LCD screen for the Nintendo Switch 2. And as you go along the article, they just to paraphrase it a bit, they find evidence on a Chinese resale site of a new LCD panel being developed for the Nintendo Switch 2. The LCD panel itself is a bit more robust and a little more sharp and has better specifications than the current LCD panel that the Nintendo Switch 2 utilizes. So I find it really interesting that this revision may potentially come about, considering the fact that that was like a complaint from a minority of people. I say a minority of people because I haven't really heard too many people complaining about it too much. uh as far as like a con, but I did hear from it on probably a few YouTube videos. I've heard people complaining about it, but they were always those really in-depth technical analysis type of reviewers because the everyday reviewer doesn't seem to notice too much of a difference, if you know what I mean. Because for me personally, when I got my Nintendo Switch 2, the screen was a big upgrade for me comparably to the original Nintendo Switch. And I don't know, I must have really bad eyes, or some people must have experience with like more robust premium handheld consoles, like maybe the ROG LIX, because I honestly don't see it. For me, it was a big upgrade, especially since I put a bunch of hours into my original Nintendo Switch, and that screen was 720p. The Nintendo Switch 2 screen is 1080p, which is a huge difference, especially coming from uh a generation that was as long as the original Nintendo Switch, which was since 2017 to now, which is probably around like I think like 8 years. That was a really long generation. Just a sidebar. It was really extremely long generation. But yeah, the original Switch had a 6.2 LCD screen. The original Switch, I don't know if I said Switch 2. The original Switch had a 6.2-inch LCD screen. And the Switch 2 itself, the newest Switch, has a 7.9-inch wide color LCD screen that is not 1920 by 1080p. So basically a 1080p screen. It supports HDR10. It has a variable refresh rate of up to 120 hertz, and it's pretty robust. I feel like for what you pay. Um, and if you compare it to something like maybe the ROG LIX, that is a 7-inch screen that's 1080p IPS level touchscreen with a 120 hertz refresh rate. But I think the biggest issue I've read when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 screen is the ghosting. Apparently, there is a ghosting effect on certain games that you notice a lot more than you do on the more premium handheld consoles like the ROG LIX. Apparently, that issue isn't as prevalent as it is on the Nintendo Switch 2, which is why a lot of people are really excited if this upgrade is indeed coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as far as the screen component. I myself, I'm kinda okay with my Nintendo Switch 2. I'm not too much of a, uh, how would I wanna phrase it? I'm not too much of a graphics snob or somebody who notices, like, input delay. Like, it would really have to be present for me to notice it because I just it's really easy for me to just put myself 100% into a game and just immerse myself completely. It really would have to be a huge issue for me to notice it, but I'm happy that for the people who may hate that ghosting issue, you might potentially get a new screen enhancement for the newest switches that's, coming into production at some point. Maybe. But I find the article to be really interesting. I'll link it below. Leave a comment if you have anything you want to add to this. I think it's pretty interesting, honestly, because it's just one of those things that I kept hearing people talk about, but I'm like, I don't see it. Like, what's the issue with the screen? So, how do you feel? Do you feel like maybe that's just a thing that people are nitpicking about, or do you think it's something that should have been resolved before the Nintendo Switch 2 was put out into the world for everybody to grab it? But yeah, leave your comment below. Subscribe, like the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.